Hello, good evening, welcome back to Leicester Fan TV. This is the Fox's Focus show. We'll be discussing all things Leicester. I've got Simon with me again. Good evening, Simon.
Evening, sorry for that slight delay and impromptu PC update. Apologies.
Slight tech issues, but we're here. A few comments to start with. Bad result. I literally can't believe how negative played the second half. There's a poor tactical decision. Michael says 2-point drops. Well, before we go into yesterday's game, we haven't been on live since the Derby game. I do want to delve into that because I do want to say that first half of the Derby game, because you were there, Simon. I watched it on TV. I haven't seen us play that well in a half, not just this season, but going back years. I've not seen us be that dominant and attack so well in a half of football. And then the second half, I've never seen us defend so there's a comparison between the Bristol defending in the second half than the Derby. I think the Derby defended really well. We kept control of the game. I never felt them like they're going to score. I think we held them back really well. And that was, so I thought Derby game was a really good game, good result. First half of the Bristol game, controlled the game. They looked none and void. They looked like a dead team. The fans were dead. Two goals up. We're thinking, yeah, cruising. Then Simon, what happened in their second half yesterday?
Well, there's a lot to unpick there, Jono. I mean, first things first. When I turned up to Derby's ground on Saturday lunchtime, I wasn't particularly optimistic, I'll be honest. So we talked about it last week, and we hadn't played well before that. We'd gone down 3-0 in the two games prior to that, in the first half of both games.
I said we was 4-0.
I don't think anyone predicted us to win when we went live last Thursday. And then I'm stood at half time having a pint, and I bumped into Reedy, and we were just both looking at each other, couldn't quite figure out what had happened. It just came out of nowhere, didn't it? Saturday's first half performance. It was, as you say, the last time we played like that was probably under Enzo Maresca a couple of seasons ago. It just came out of nowhere, and I don't know where that came from. Whether the manager was encouraging to do things different. It was more direct. There was less of the endless passing it between the defence and the goalkeeper. It was, we were getting the ball quickly forward with purpose. The delivery of the ball into the final third was a million times better than it's been for as long as I can remember. And he just kind of, I mean, obviously, whilst it was massively enjoyable, especially against, I guess our biggest rival in the Championship this season in terms of Derby games, just came out of nowhere. And as you said, the second half, whilst it wasn't as impressive, it was in another way for me, in terms of we knew that Derby were going to come out and try and get an early goal, try and get themselves back in it. And I thought we weathered that storm really well. And I thought we played with some tenacity in the second half and put in a different type of performance, but it was a good performance in a different way to protect the work we'd done in the first half. Then you kind of sit down to kind of watch the game last night, and I was driving home from work and I was kind of thinking, I don't know what Leicester's going to turn up here. Was Saturday a flash in the pan, or is this going to be a continuation of the weekend? And the first half last night absolutely was that.
Yep. And
it was a huge relief for me, because I thought, it's not a one-hit wonder. We're actually going to continue to play in this vein. And that first half performance against the Bristol City side that have been good this season, let's be honest, and we were away, I thought was excellent. Excellent performance. Ayew was having a very good game. Everybody was. Skip looked every bit as good as he did at the weekend. And then you go into half time and you're anticipating, obviously, Bristol City to react, because, they are a good side this season. But the negative manner in which we managed the second half last night was depressing, if I'm honest. And it was a mixture for me of bad tactical decisions from the manager, if I'm being honest, and also a bad game management on the pitch from the players as well. They never got any sort of control on that game in the second half last night at all. And it was just getting hammered by Bristol City for the whole second half, just wave after wave of attack. And we were just camped in. And you could see Cifuentes screaming at them to get further up the pitch. But just couldn't do it. And we were lucky in the end with the amount of shots that Bristol City had on goal in the second half to get away with the point. And whilst I think we all would have, I said, well, I can only speak for myself. I would have taken a point last night, if I'm honest. The nature in which it transpired made it feel like we should have got 3, and we lost. Yeah, it felt like a loss after the game.
If you said to me after losing to Sheffield and Southampton, "Oh, you're going to get 4 points from Derby and Bristol," I'd be like, "You serious?" Yeah, I'll take 4 points with you, no problem. And out of 4, because Leicester's at the moment is a half team, because we're not expecting a full 90 minutes. 3 out of the 4 halves of the last 2 games were really, really good, in my opinion, and just in different ways. But the way we capitulated in that second half, and I want to bring up a comment someone put, don't want Marty sacked, but citizens weren't great. I don't think it was I don't agree with bringing off Jordan James. I think he just should have stayed on. But the players looked too complacent. As you said, I turned off at the halfway through because I thought the players had given up. But I agree. He's shouting. He's not saying to the players sit back and just hold for a draw. He's saying get up the bloody pitch and go. That's why he brought on Silko Thomas to go at them. So I don't. And someone put another comment here saying, where was it? Why do we concede so many goals? Sort of second half, we conceded a lot of goals in both halves. Beginning of the Sheffield United game, conceded 2 goals in 5 minutes. So it's not just a one-off thing. We can't switch on immediately. It takes us a few minutes to switch on.
Well, there's a few. Yeah, I agree with you. There's a few bits to add to that. The first thing is, and please anyone correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we kept a clean sheet in 14 games now, from memory. So there's the first thing. We're struggling to stop other teams scoring. We have to get at least 2 or 3 goals up at the moment to have a chance of winning the game of football, because we can't keep other teams from scoring goals. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, from what I understand from what Cifuentes said after the game last night, Jordan James was complaining of a groin pain at half time, right? So they told him to give it 10 minutes in the second half and see how it was feeling. And they got 10 minutes into the second half. He must have signalled to the bench that he was still feeling it. And in order to protect him, because the last thing any of us need at the moment is Jordan James out long term, they took him off. Fine. However, what I'm not fine with is the substitution decisions that the manager made at that juncture, because he puts Daka on, right, for Jordan James. And the reason he has to do that is because we've got no recognised centre midfielder on the bench, because Winks is in exile and Samare is injured, right? So we haven't got a centre midfielder on the bench to slot in like for like. However, he puts Daka on, puts him up front, pulls Ayew back into the 10, and then pulls Cordova-Reid back into the middle of midfield, right? A position that he's probably rarely ever played. You know, he's a wide man or an attacking midfielder. He's not a centre midfielder. He's a slight lad. He's not going to give you that sort of grit and tackle and determination. Yes, he's a creative player, and I think he warrants his start now in the team in one of those attacking midfield roles. But he's not an 8. You know, however, Jono, sitting at right back last night was a centre midfielder in Hamza Chowdhury. And why on earth would you not, given that James is now not fit to continue the game, or you've made that decision, drop Chowdhury into midfield and put a Luco on to play at fullback? I don't understand why we're playing players out of position and we end up with square pegs in round holes. And for me, that was part of the problem, at least for a while, until he put a Luco on and switched Chowdhury into midfield and took Cordova-Reid off. It was a big part of the problem in the second half. And I thought that was a managerial error for me personally.
Do you think it was a moment of panic because he's expecting Jordan? Maybe he's thinking, right, this Jordan James thing. Maybe he's thinking he's felt something, but it'll be okay. Then when he said, "Right, I need to come off," he's like, "Right, I'll put you on." Then after 20 minutes, he's like thinking, "Actually, now if he made the childish decision earlier, we might have actually stood a chance to weather the storm." But the thing that made the difference is even with the starting lineup, they scored within 2 minutes of the second half starting. Why can't we switch on from the whistle?
I don't know. What's he saying to him at half time? Because if it was me, you've just watched an excellent 45 minutes from your team, right? So if I'm stood in there as a manager, and Christ, I know I'm not qualified, but as a layman, if I'm stood there, I'm telling my team I want more of the same. I'm telling them to expect a little bit of a storm from Bristol City for the first 10 minutes of that second half, because they're going to come looking for a goal, because if they get one, they're right back in the game. So you need to weather that storm. But once you weather that storm and get past that 10 minutes, you get a little bit of a foothold in the game. You can start to deliver the same sort of performance that you did in the first half and get back to what you were doing well in the first half. But we abandoned all of that in the second half and just got increasingly negative and withdrawn as the second half of that game last night went on, to the point where we're camped in our own box with waves and waves of Bristol City attacks coming at us, one after the other. And if you let a team have that much of the game and that many opportunities, just by law of averages, you're going to concede goals. I can't get my head around it. I can't understand it. I don't know whether it's a lack of confidence from the players, whether it's bad instruction from the coaching staff. I don't know, but to get that sort of control in the game at half time and to squander it like that, for me is criminal.
It is criminal, but also I'm thinking about it. You mentioned earlier, we haven't got any midfielders. You know, when Jordan James got injured, we have to. Yeah, Chowdhury. Yes, you could put Chowdhury in midfield, but then is it as well as there's been bad club management for over the summer? Are we actually prepared to have injuries? Because we've got a few injuries now. We're weak at the back. You know, we've got a few players injured, and it just seems like if one player gets injured, we have to kind of makeshift people somewhere else. Chowdhury's not a right back in my eyes. He's more of as a DM rather than as a right back. But he's actually right.
Yeah, there's something else though in there, because there's this whole rule that Cifuentes and his staff have made now, which must be with the medical staff, that Ricardo can't play midweek weekend because his body won't cope with it and he'll get injured. And we have seen that in recent seasons. We've seen Ricardo play week in, week out and end up out for weeks and weeks with an injury. So they've made a medical decision that in the week, Ricardo doesn't play, and then it gives his body a chance to recover for weekend games. We don't have, the only other option is to start playing a Luco at right back instead. And you could argue, potentially, I guess, that there was an argument for that last night, given the fact that we didn't have any recognised centre midfielders on the bench. So would you not rather have Chowdhury on the bench as cover in case of any eventuality? Ultimately, Jordan James doesn't end up straining or injuring his groin in some way. This conversation is not being had, so it's a bit of misfortune. But the other side of it is that we ended up trying to force square pegs into round holes with the decisions that the manager made when that occurred. And for me, that was at least part of the problem. We were asking players to do jobs which aren't really their game.
It's not, and if we do that against Ipswich at the weekend, they were, when the season started, we were sitting near the top of the table. We're sitting pretty. 20 games in, we're mid-table, and Ipswich are now fourth, pushing on for, if they beat us, pushing on for they'll be in third place. So they're pushing for promotion again. So we can't be complacent. Is it a bit of complacency as well with the players, because we saw the passion against Derby? Was it thinking, everything's, I watched the game and it was so quiet. The fans were so quiet in that first half. Were they thinking, yeah, it's going to be easy, and they just got too complacent?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think with the group of players that he's now selecting, there's that. Mavididi, for example, left it all out there until he got subbed off yesterday. There are players in there that are trying very, very hard. Despite the result in the end yesterday, I thought Ben Nelson had a very good game again. And they are at least a good proportion when putting their bodies on the line. It got messy in the second half, and again, I'm repeating myself. I don't know whether it's a confusion from what the manager's telling them to do in the second half. I don't know whether it's a little bit of lack of confidence, because let's be honest, this season so far, as you alluded to earlier, they've not put a 90-minute performance in, and they're anticipating Bristol to come at them in the second half. And then does that then subconsciously then make them sit a bit deeper because they're worried about the goal that they've been warned they might well concede early on in the second half? I don't know. You know, I did hear a little bit of criticism here and there from some corners this morning about Stolarczyk, and I'm not having that. He saved a lot in that second half.
Him, I think, yeah, he's the only one who can walk out of there with his head held high. And also, I think for Taru, I think his run got us the second goal, and I don't blame him to the forwards, because I can't even blame Daka, because we didn't leave our half, so we can't really complain about that. Let's go through some comments, and then we'll.
There's quite a few coming in now.
There's quite a few, yeah. Richard said Martin's not good enough. He's had more than enough time in his games. Shocking. I can't understand how Ricardo could not play 15-20 minutes at the end last night. Surely he's not that unfit. I don't think he's unfit. I just think he's very injury prone, like super injury prone, so we can't play that much. He brought all the best players off and replaced them with crap. I still think Marty's lots to learn. He's only young in management in terms he's not had much experience. I'm on the fence whether I like Marty or not. On one side, I think he has good tactics, and I think I like his style of play from what he showed against Derby and what he played in pre-season. But sometimes he has managerial moments which I question, like the subs against Bristol and against Middlesbrough, where he thought we're 1-0 up and just thought we'll park the bus. But then I'm thinking, what's he trying to manage? We all know Leicester behind the scenes is an absolute crap show. Is he trying? You got to see for the bigger picture that he's not just dealing with players on the pitch. You got people like Winks, who's making his job a nightmare behind the scenes. He gets told that he can't sign anybody because he's got no money. So, and he's got attitude from the players who don't want to be there. So it's not an easy job. I want him to stay the whole season. I want him to have a full pre-season. I want him to have the players that he wants to bring in, with all the players who don't want to be here, who are going. And I want him to, because some poor comments say we're not going up. We're not going up this season. That is loud and clear. I want to stay in the Championship one more season to steady the ship, accept all the point deductions, like bring it on, accept all the points deductions, and start afresh, start from zero and build our way back up.
Yeah, I think the Championship this season, unlike the season we went up a couple of years ago and last season, is very open. You know, I was watching the table as the game was playing last night, and we could have gone 1 point from the playoffs if we won last night. It's such a tight league, and we've had a very dodgy run of results apart from very recently lately, and we're still in the mix to get in the top six. So that tells you how open this league is and how teams are taking points off each other all the time. No, the only team that's really held any consistency together so far is Coventry, and they lost at the weekend.
Well, then won 2 games. They drew and lost.
Yeah, so you know, no one's absolutely running away with it, and no one's uncatchable. So if we can create some consistency, then we will drive ourselves into the top six reckoning. But of course, there is that points deduction looming, which could change that at any time now. But ultimately, you've got to ask yourself, Jono, if you sack the manager now, right? Say we sack the manager, so right, actually, do you know what? We're really disappointed with that second half performance last night. We've seen it too often this season. I'm sorry, you can't get this team to play for 90 minutes. You're on your way. Number one, who comes in, who's any better? Right? When you start looking around and actually looking at who's available.
Who would want to come here?
Well, there's the number two. Number two, who's going to want to take it in the situation it's in, with a looming points deduction, and quite clearly from the last 3 managers to date, a difficult group of players to manage and motivate as well. It's not the most perfect situation. You've got very average players on very big wages that you've got to try and squeeze some sort of performance out of. It's not the easiest job in the world. Cifuentes did from what we understand, engineer enthusiastically the move to Leicester. If it's true, he paid part of his own compensation to get out of QPR in order to come. He was keen to take the job. I think he saw an opportunity to increase his profile in the game with a club with bigger potential ambition than the one he was at. No disrespect to QPR, but historically, lately, Leicester won the FA Cup, won the league. They've got more of a pedigree of the last few years. So you can see what he's trying to do, and I think he's an honest guy. He's not the first man to struggle to get a tune out of this group of players.
This is what I mean. Once these, deadwood players like Simare, Fass, Winks, Daka, once they've all gone, it'll free up at least 200 grand in wages. And then he brings players that he wants to motivate, because Skip's motivated. Silko Thomas is motivated. Jordan James is definitely motivated. So it's not like it's all the players who are just saying, right, we don't like him. It's a bad bunch, and there's a lot of them, which is creating this division, which is what... And this is what I would also praise Marty for. He's not gone, well, we're paying him 60 grand a week, we need to play him. He's gone, okay, you've had that attitude, you're off. He's not going to put him on the bench, he's not in the team.
I mean, we won't know what's gone on to push Winks completely out of the squad for the second time in his career at Leicester. We don't know. There's a lot of rumour going around about he's done this or this has happened or whatever, but we don't know. What we do know is it's the second time in 2 seasons that lad has been removed from the playing squad. There's clearly a problem there. Whatever that is, we don't know. When he's on his game, to be fair, if he'd have been on the bench last night with Jordan James getting injured, you got a little bit more confidence in him coming on to finish the job off and get us the 3 points and kind of steer the ship through. But the other side of it is that there's clearly an issue with his either his commitment or his attitude towards the whole situation at the moment for whatever reason. So it puts us in a spot, especially with Samari injured. We're thin at centre midfield at the moment. But the manager's got to manage it. Ultimately, that's what he's paid to do. You've got to manage that. But manage it sensibly. Don't start trying to put players that don't play there normally and don't have that professional skill set into those positions and expect them, when we're having pressure heaped on us by the opposition, to do a job. It's a difficult ask. Don't do it.
No. Well, it's going to be made a little bit harder because we're going to lose Daka at the at AFCON. So we're going to have to try and find a player to play it. You can't play every game, so we have to find maybe bring in Jake Evans. He can do a shift.
Well, Carranza's kind of disappeared, John, hasn't he, lately? He was getting off the bench a bit here and there, but he's vanished from the...
What's his sound like? Who's that player last season who played 2 games and not played?
Edwards.
I know I'm taking the piss. Yeah, Edward.
Well, he's had a lot to say about that since he's found another club, but now he felt Van Nistelrooy completely froze him out. I mean, Gary's on with us tonight. Look, Gary, evening to you, mate. No loss missing Daka. I'll be honest with you, and I got a little bit of flack for this in one of the chats I'm in last night. I agree with that. I think Daka, it's almost like playing with 10 men when he comes on the pitch. What does he give to the team? He's got that. Well, exactly, but he doesn't use it, Jono. This is what frustrates me. Okay, fine. You're not going to score loads of goals. We've accepted that now. You're not prolific, for us. Fine, it's not work. But at least run the channels and give them something to pass to take the pressure off a bit. Hold the ball up. Don't just fall over every time someone taps you and end up on the floor, and then the referee's looking at you, waving you to get off the floor and giving no free kick. Do something, contribute. Because for me, he doesn't do the dirty part of the job, let alone the more spectacular part of it. It's frustrating.
He doesn't do the basics.
Run the channels and give them something to pass at and get the ball out of our final third.
I mean, this guy's put losing Daka Drafko not a problem, but Evans, I think Evans deserves. When Daka goes, this is Evans. You want to talk about players playing for passion? The local lad in the youth team, he'll definitely give us one. We continue talking about how poor the players have been, but we'll end the show with going into Saturday against Ipswich. So this for me will be the give me the best impression of Marty Cifuentes. I want to see. We started excellently against Derby. We started excellently against Bristol. I want us to start the game, not the second half. I want to start the game on the front foot. Because if you show Ipswich, it's like in the wild. If you show you're scared, the whole world will eat you alive. You've got to show something Ipswich. We are going to give you a game. If he doesn't do that, if he tries to play passive football, passive on the back football, I'll be very disappointed because we're expecting now we can play this type of football. We've seen it in 2 games. Let's keep it up. I think it's going to be a 1-1 draw.
Okay. I mean, for me, having seen the game on Saturday at Derby, in my head going into the week, I had 4 points in my head, as an ideal kind of return from this group of games. 3 points against Derby and then a point against Bristol City, even though I don't think any of us are particularly happy with the way that played out, and a win on Saturday at home to Ipswich. Ipswich have got a bit of form. They started the season a bit lukewarm, like we have later on into the season. They started the season in quite lukewarm when we're lurking around the bottom. They've built some consistency. They're starting to build some points up. They're heading towards the sharp end of the table. They won against Stoke, and I think Stoke have now lost 3 or 4 in a row now, I think, from memory. So they've gone right off the boil from being second in the league. They seem to have lost a bit of momentum. But ultimately, it's a challenge. They're a side that were in the Premier League with us last season. I know they've lost quite a few players that they've let go. They've got Hurst back from Chelsea. I think we checked that before we came on loan. McAteer, obviously, we sold him, but he's not playing for whatever reason. I don't know what's happened there. But they're building a bit of consistency, and they're building something now which looks like it's going to be assault on the top 6, which means, as you just said, we've got to go out on Saturday with the same attitude we did on Saturday gone. We've got to go out there. We're at home. Going to dictate the game. We're going to play direct football like we did on Saturday. No messing around at the back. Let's get on with it. Let's get the ball forward quickly on the break, as we did very effectively against Derby. And let's take the initiative. And for some reason, both first half last night and Saturday, we found some quality passing into the final third for the first time this season as well. So there are a lot of shoots. Whilst we've been quite critical tonight in terms of the second half performance last night, you take that 45 minutes out, this week has been largely positive apart from that. Yeah. And as disappointing as that second half was, the rest of it
was positive.
It's a big improvement, let's be honest. So we need to see that continuing. He needs, the manager, this is Cifuentes, to get that lack of confidence, negativity that we saw yesterday in the second half out of this team. They should be, they did great things in the first half yesterday. Why are you forgetting that? Where's it gone? Where's it disappeared to in the second half? You're still the same players. Where's it gone? And that isn't all about Jordan James coming off. It's not that simple.
It's not simple, but this is what all the fans have been screaming for: is effort, passion, not the second half of Bristol against Bristol where we sat back and it was like a sponge trying to absorb it all, but then eventually we couldn't take any more. But if we come out of the game for draw, I wouldn't be disheartened. I'd be like, okay, fair enough. That Ipswich are a very good team. They beat Coventry 3-0 with ease. So this is going to be a tough game. But just put it on. If you put your authority down straight away, they'll say to us, okay, this won't be a walk in the park. But we can't concede in the first 5 minutes as we've done twice in the past 3 games.
I mean, the last game at home, Jono, Sheffield United, we were 3-0 down by half time. Half the crowd had gone home and were walking back to their car while the half time break was going on. We've got to be better than that this weekend. There are shoots. There are shoots that better. Yeah, that absolutely, I agree. But the last 2 games, whilst last night's second half was awful, have shown shoots of improvement. We need to build on that on Saturday, and we need to continue in that vein with this new way of playing, with some of the players that the manager's now decided are bad for whatever reason. They're not good for the performance of the side. Now out of the picture a little bit, we need to start focusing and moving forward. And let's just hope that Jordan James groin strain, whatever it was last night, is nothing more than a little bit of a twinge, and he gets past fit for Saturday, because he was key last week against Derby, and he is key key to us and our season, really. And if he gets injured, it changes the picture, especially with Winks and Samari out of the reckoning at the moment.
It does. Before we go, what do you think the score will be? I think it'll be a 1-1 tight game draw. Hope, but my head says 1-1. My heart says 2-1.
I would absolutely love us to keep a clean sheet for the first time in God knows how long. That would be fantastic. I think the likes of Stolarczyk and Nelson deserve that for me, with the effort and the commitment they're putting in at the moment. So that would be a big lift for me if we could get a clean sheet. We've got goals now, Jono, this last couple of games. We've scored 5 goals in 2 games. We're starting to show we can score goals, which is positive.
Yeah.
And I felt a little bit these last 2 games like Ayew is starting to step up in that striker role. And that header that he scored on Saturday against Derby was a goal, it wasn't offside. And it was a good finish.
Yeah.
So he obviously scored a penalty last night. He's starting to contribute more. So we have got goals now. I think we'll win on Saturday. I do genuinely think we'll win. I think we'll win, and I'm going to go with 2-0. I'm going to be optimistic, and I'm going to go with a clean sheet as well.
Well, this guy says clean sheets, but we draw. If we have a clean sheet, we draw. We guess we get a point. But we all appreciate you coming on. Thank you, Simon, for joining me.
Thank you, mate. Nice to see you.
Don't forget, we've got Jamie's show, the after. I thought this just. My brain is honestly like jelly.
Sunday, Jono. Sunday.
Yes.
Aftermath show.
Famous aftermath show with Jamie on Sunday. Then we've got Phil's show on Monday, and then there's no midweek game next week. So we'll be talking about next Thursday the game against Ipswich. We appreciate all of you watching. Don't forget to follow us on all our socials. Thank you for your comments, and don't forget to give us a like on your way out. I'm sure you see which will see you all next week.
The Leicester City machine is on the march again.
Leicester Fan TV presents a variety of content like fan discussions, match analysis, and engaging with Leicester fans worldwide. We want your views live, thanks to our sponsors, Everard's, Pucker Pies, Hologram, Take Me, Newbie & Co, and the Fox's Arms.
Want to watch more content like this? Hit the like button. Give us your views. Hit subscribe to Leicester Fan TV and make sure to follow us on all socials.